I was really excited when I received this because this is one of, I think, the most anticipated project from Chronicles with the Truthear. I think this project has been actually released for around a year, but yeah, at least it's finally released. So, hello and welcome to Aftersound Review, and this is my review for Truthear X Chronicle Truthear Zero Red. And yes, this is more like a alternate version of the Truthear Zero with difference in its measurement and its sounds, but yeah, it's definitely still using 2 dynamic driver, and right now it's also giving you impedance adapter for the tuning. So just like usual, I'll break down this review from the build, fit, frequency response, sound, and comparison. Well, if you already have the Truthear Zero original or the OG, the blue version, the build quality is exactly the same. Even the measurement in terms of build and physicality is exactly the same. It just have this red faceplate right now. It's all made of resin, and I would say they definitely looks good. And the body itself is kind of translucent black, so in some light you could see what's inside of them. I could see there's a dynamic driver around this part, and the nozzle part is relatively big for an IM, and it's using 2-pin connector, and the cable itself is braided. Well, it's a good build quality, but not really outstanding yet. Now, in terms of ergonomic, I need to tell you that this IM has a really large and big nozzle, so you could see that even the ear tips has a really big hole here, so not all ear tips could fit this IM, and maybe not all ears could fit this IM because it simply has a really big nozzle, even though the shape of the housing itself is not really big, but the nozzle is definitely big. But fortunately, it fits my ears nicely, so I could wear them during my listening time for some hours without any complaint. One thing that I find to be really strange about this IM, because this IM is measured at 117 dB for its sensitivity, and also 17.5 ohms for its impedance. So basically, if you take a look at the specification only, it should be easy to drive, right? But that's not what happened with this IM. At least this also happened with the Truthear Zero, the original, and also the KZHP beacon. I don't know, maybe something's quite unique in their measurement, or I'm not sure why, but they are relatively harder to drive than the usual IMs. For example, when I'm using some usual IMs, I would say I'm using maybe around 50 to 70 level of my handphone volume to get a nice volume to my level of volume. But using this Truthear Zero, it's almost on the full volume on my handphone. And for using my audio player here, the usual volume level for IMs at low gain without the Class A amp, I'm usually playing them at maybe around 40 to 50 volume level, but using this Truthear Zero Red, KZHP beacon, and also the Truthear Zero, the original, I could use maybe around 60 volume level. So it's definitely harder to drive than the most IMs. And also using the impedance adapter does add, you need definitely crank up the volume a bit to, at least for my level of sensitivity, I need to crank them up to around 70 or maybe 65. So it's definitely an IM that's quite hard to drive compared to the other IMs that I've ever tried and reviewed. It's not as hard as the PR2. PR2 using my phone, using my audio player here, gets around 80, but this is 60. So yeah, basically still a little bit hard to drive than the other IMs, but not as hard as the PR2. Now, talking about the frequency response here, well, it's easy to say that this IM could be categorized as neutral with bass boost. And this impedance adapter does change the bass, definitely added some decibel to the bass to make this IM more bassy than the normal configuration. Well, but I have to say that during my listening time with this Truthear Zero, I really never enjoy using the impedance adapter because it's simply giving the muddiness to the sound of this Truthear Zero Red. Also, it somehow feels a little bit muddy and foggy in imaging, so it's not as clear as this original version. So that's mainly the the configuration that I will talk about the most in this review, not without the impedance adapter here. Well, the bass is, you can feel the bass quantity on it. It's a thumping bass. You can feel the punch and also depth of this bass. But there's something about the bass that doesn't feel really energetic. It doesn't feel really impactful or at your face, but it's just very clean and deep kind of bass that is really well controlled. Even though you do get a dedicated driver there, but it never goes to be uncontrolled bass. It never goes overly bassy or bleeding into the mid-range. Unless you're using this impedance adapter, but using the default, I would say that the bass is really clean and nicely tuned. It's just maybe not really energetic enough for some EDMs or maybe some electronic music. But it's, in terms of bass quality and bass texture, it's definitely really good. Now again, the mid-range is neutrally tuned and it's so balanced. It's really balanced to the point that I almost cannot say that I don't have any critique on them, because it's simply so balanced sounding. Using male or female vocals are brilliant with this I just couldn't find any shoutiness. I don't find it's too forward or too subdued either. It's just really well tuned and really sounds natural. But if I have to say, maybe that I have to nitpick something, it's not really suitable for music that needs some fierceness on the edge of their vocal, for rock music maybe, or some folk music or something like that. Because the mid-range on this IM is really smooth, to the point that when I'm hearing some rock or metal music, I do find that it's lacking some fierceness, it's lacking some roughness to giving the soul of the music. So if you like those kind of metal or rock music, I don't think that this IM is for you, because for me, at least for my preference, it simply sounds too smooth and lacking that bite or fierceness. But other than that, it is really well balanced and cleanly tuned. Now getting to the high frequency of this IM, I would say that it's a very smooth treble response for this IM. I hear no sharp peaks, no sharp edges, no anything metallic or it gives us any sibilance or zinginess. So basically, it's a very smooth treble response no matter what kind of music I try to them. It's really smooth, but also natural and sounding detailed at the same time. So it's a really nice treble response from this IM. It has nice sparkle on it. The timbre is also good, but maybe, again, one thing that I always feel when I'm hearing this IM, just like the mid-range, when I'm hearing some music that needs a lot of bite and a lot of fierceness, I think this IM sounds too safe for me, and it doesn't really give me this bite that I want when I'm hearing some maybe rock music or some orchestral music. When I'm hearing violins for Lindsay Stirling, some of the violin string bites from them, it doesn't really feel forward as it's supposed to be. So the energy of the treble is sometimes kinda restrained, even though it is detailed, smooth and natural sounding at the same time. But for me, it just lacks a little bit of bite to it. In terms of technical, for the price point, well, it's definitely one of the best. But simply said, it's like a second tier maybe for around $50. I would say that KZ PR2 is still stand at the top in terms of technicalness for $50 price point. And then the second layer is the 3 IM that using 2 dynamic driver like this Truthear Zero Red, the Truthear Zero OG, and also the KKC HB. I would say that the 3 of them have a similar place for the technical level. They are simply one of the best, if not because of the KZ PR2. Well, you got a really good resolution, and also you got a very nicely separated bass and also mid-range. You do get dedicated drivers for them. And also, if you're talking about depth of soundstage and imaging, it's definitely really good. You could feel there's a 3D-ness on them, and you can pinpoint some instruments where the sound is coming from. Basically, it's just simply really good and also majestic. you hear soundtracks and a lot of music like that, you will not miss a thing, especially for the price point. It's just really stand out, but it's not the best. It's at the same level with the KKZ HP Buchan and also the Truthear Zero OG, but not at the same level of resolution and detail as the KZ PR2. Now let's take a look at the comparison here. First of all, I'd like to compare them with the Truthear Zero OG. Well, simply said, they both share very similar kind of tonality on them. It's just that the Truthear OG feels more V-shaped with more bass and upper mid-range elevation, while this Truthear Zero Red is somehow more preserved in those areas, having a more natural and also fuller sounding mid-range, and also giving you less sub-bass boost, to the point that yeah, it sounds simply more natural, I would say, more natural and more balanced overall, but it is not as exciting as the Truthear OG. Well, it's just really back to your preference. Which one would you like, a more V-shaped presentation and more fun sounding, or this IM that for me has a more cleaner and also balanced sounding, but it is more boring? Again, comparing them with another two dynamic driver for its price point, like the KKZ HP Buchan. Simply that KKZ HP Buchan is the most bassiest of the three, and also I feel that it has the best bass texture of the three, even though it feels kind of exaggerated at times. It's not really the most balanced of the three, it's the most V-shaped, but it's also the most exciting at the same time. When I'm hearing EDMs or electronic music, I can't help but shaking my head when I'm hearing the KKZ HP Buchan. And also you do get more upper mid-range elevation, maybe to balancing out the bass elevation on the lower end. And this, comparing them with the Truthear Zero Red, simply said, the red is again much more balanced. If you think that KKZ HP Buchan feels a little bit kinda frill sounding in the upper mid-range, it's more thinner and sometimes kinda feels spiky maybe at some songs. While the Truthear Zero Red will not give you that spike or that upper mid-range forwardness. It simply sounds more fuller, more preserved in energy, but it sounds more boring if you already like the KKZ HP Buchan. Now comparing them with the KZ PR2, which I still consider to be the king in terms of technical and resolution for the price point, simply said, the KZ PR2 has better and also, not better, more extended treble response, but it does give you that kind of zinginess, that kind of airiness that is a little bit, and not a little bit, that is unnatural at some music. You get more air than you supposedly get, but you do get more micro details up there that maybe you haven't heard when you're hearing this Truthear Zero Red. And also sometimes I feel that the speed and slam is just more fast in the KZ PR2. Well, simply said, KZ PR2 is better in almost all of the technical levels. It's just not as wide sounding as this Truthear Zero Red. But in terms of naturality and timbre, also balancing the overall frequency, the Truthear Zero Red is simply better compared to KZ PR2. Well, again, it's back to your own preference. I would consider them both to be really amazing. I could listen to KZ PR2 maybe with some more busy music out there, and some more music that needs that kind of ethereal air presentation. But when I'm hearing the Truthear Zero Red, it's simply more versatile and also more all-rounder, I would say. But again, one thing that I always feel, even though this IM is really well balanced overall, it lacks some kind of bite and excitement to it, to the point that it's definitely, again, it sounds boring compared to the KZ PR2. Now, as an overall, the Truthear Zero Red definitely give me a great impression, but basically, in terms of tonality, balance, and overall timbre, it's just almost flawless for the price point. But there's only one or two things that for me that's making me say that this is definitely not the best, because it's lacks some excitement when I'm hearing the KKZ HP Buchan or even the Truthear Zero OG. It feels more exciting for me to hear, and also it lacks somehow that dynamics and fierceness when I'm hearing some rock or metal music, that I still do get that excitement when I'm hearing like the KK's HBB cut and the also PR2. So again, this IM is very well balanced objectively, but subjectively for my own preference, I like dynamics and I like bites when I'm hearing some music of mine. This IM doesn't really give me that kind of emotion, to the point that if you ask me personally, maybe I'm gonna switching on those IMs when I'm hearing, sometimes I want to hear the KZPR2, sometimes I want to hear this, sometimes I want to KKZH, because there's nothing that I would say that this is the best for me right now. At least I'm still choosing at them, but that's all I could say about this IM right now. It's amazing, but it's subjectively not the best, but objectively might be in terms of balancing the overall sound. So this is what I could give this IM. This is the tonality and also this is the technicality for me. And yeah, it could be changed with the changing of benchmark or simply the change in technology later. If you are interested in seeing that, please take a look at the rank list below here in the description. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.